Okay, hello everyone. I'm Julianne, the summer student with the TNRL Kamloops Library, and today we have Lauren from the Thompson-Nicola Invasive Plant Management Committee, and she is presenting a talk for kids on invasive plants. So what are they, what do they do, and why is it important that we talk about them and get rid of them? Lauren, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Julianne. So my name's Lauren, like Julianne said, and I work with the Thompson-Nicola Invasive Plant Management Committee. And with that, I study plants all over the Thompson-Nicola area. So today I'm here to talk to you about a specific type of plant, and that is called an invasive plant. So I'm here to talk to you today because this time of year is a really important time for plants. Most of us love being outside or maybe in the garden. So we know that plants are really busy at this time of year making flowers and pollen and even fruits and vegetables for us. But invasive plants are also busy. Their busyness is causing more problems for us and other plants and animals in our area. So before we get started, we kind of all need to be on the same page about what it means to be invasive or even what an invasive plant is. So sometimes I like to think of invasive plants like aliens because they come from really far away and then they cause problems when they arrive. But invasive plants are simply just plants that aren't from here, and then they come here and cause problems for other plants, animals, and people. So before we talk specifically about invasive plants, I want us all to remember how plants spread around and how they move to new places. We all know plants can't walk and they don't have shoes, so how do they move around? Well, they move around and start growing by these things called seeds. Oh, Julianne, we might have to start again. I need to be a host.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Julianne with the TNRL Kamloops and District Libraries, and I'm here today with Lauren from the Thompson-Nicola Invasive Plant Management Committee, and she's going to give a talk on invasive plants for kids. So what are they, what do they do, and why is it important that we get rid of them? Lauren, do you want to take it away?
Awesome, thanks Julianne. So yeah, my name's Lauren and I work all over the Thompson-Nicola area studying plants. And I'm here to talk to you today about a specific type of plant called an invasive plant. So I'm here to talk to you because this time of year is a really important time for plants. Most of us like being outside or we like being in the garden. So we know that plants are really busy at this time of year making flowers and pollen and even fruits and vegetables for us right now. Invasive plants are busy too, though. However, their busyness is causing more problems for us and other plants and animals in the area. So before we get started, I want us all to be on the same page about what it means to be invasive and what an invasive plant is. So I like to think of invasive plants like aliens that come from really far away and then they come here and cause problems. But invasive plants are simply just plants that are not from here, and then they come here and cause problems for other plants, animals, and people. So before we talk specifically about invasive plants, I want us all to remember how plants spread around and how they move to new places. So we all know plants can't walk and they don't have shoes that allow them to get around. So what allows them to move around? And that is seeds. Now, seeds can move short distances and they can move long distances. They can move short distances by things like water or wind, or even animals can move them around, like this little bird here has a berry in his mouth. And seeds can also move long distances, mainly by people. So seeds can move around in our outdoor equipment, maybe our ATVs or our bikes. They can get stuck to people, and people can also plant them, which will move them long distances. So talking about seeds and how they move around is really important because invasive plants have particularly sneaky ways of getting their seeds new rides to new places. So I'm going to show you a couple examples of invasive plants that have particularly sneaky seeds, and you can actually find these all over our area. So this first plant is called burdock. And burdock has these large seeds with long spikes on them. And if you were to actually look at these spikes under a microscope or a magnifying glass, you would see at the end that they all have these little hooks on them. And these hooks are great for allowing them to get stuck to things. So like this poor guy's sock here, it's kind of just covered in burdock, and that's an easy way for it to move around. A fun fact actually is that Velcro was actually inspired by how burdock sticks to things. So they actually work the same way, which is pretty cool. So now not all invasive plants have large spiky seeds. Some actually move around, have other mechanisms. So this next invasive plant is named after a big tongue. So if you were to stick your tongue out, you would look exactly like the leaves of this plant called hound's tongue. Except I don't think your tongues are green. So hound's tongue seeds also have spikes on them, but they are much smaller, and their seeds are smaller too. And when seeds are small, it allows them to go unnoticed. So many times people and animals aren't even aware that they're bringing seeds around with them. So seeds can attach to things and move quite long distances before people even notice that they're there. So now for this next invasive plant, not all invasive plants have spiky seeds. Some actually have other tricks. So this next invasive plant kind of looks like a giant dandelion. But it's actually called yellow sulsify, or goat's beard. And this plant is tricky because in the afternoons or on a cloudy or rainy day, they actually will close up their flowers and you won't be able to see the flowers anymore, like in the second photo here. So you might actually mistake it for a type of maybe large grass and you won't see it. So the last two seeds we talked about, we said they moved around by sticking to things. Well, this plant actually uses a different method. They actually move by wind. I bet most of you have picked a dandelion or you've picked one of these goat's beard before and you've blown on it. And when you do that, you see all these white puffs just floating in the wind. And those white fluffs are actually their seeds. So here's a close-up version one here in the third picture. And if you were to look at it closely, you would see that it's kind of shaped like an umbrella. And being shaped like an umbrella means it'll easily get caught in the wind, so it can easily, potentially move long distances through the wind. So overall, seeds can move around in a lot of different ways. So now that we know what invasive plants are and kind of how they move around, I want to start talking about why they're a problem to us. So one reason that they're a problem is because they're really good at getting their seeds around like we saw. But another reason is that they have no natural plant predators because they're from somewhere else. So if we were to think about a plant predator that lives in our area, we could think of something small like an insect, maybe a caterpillar, all the way up to a large mammal like maybe a deer. Those are all plant predators. Now the problem is that plant predators generally don't like to eat invasive plants because they're not used to them and they might taste a little funny to them. So this is kind of like when we try food for the first time. We might think that it tastes a little funny, so maybe we just avoid it and don't like eating it. So that's exactly how plant predators feel when they eat invasive plants. So now we have a situation where we have an invasive plant growing in our area. So let's say the purple plant here is the invasive plant and the grasses are our native plants. So every year it's going to produce lots of seeds and nothing's going to want to eat it. So every year it's going to continue to grow and outcompete our native plants until we end up with an area that's just covered in invasive plants. So you can see there, it's all just the purple plant. And here's some examples of some real life fields that have been covered in invasive plants. And one thing you can notice is that they're all one color. So all orange, yellow, or purple. And that means there's only probably the invasive plant growing there, which isn't very good for the environment. So maybe if you were to imagine you were a baby deer that maybe needed really tall grass to hide in from predators. And if an invasive plant was coming into the area that maybe was smaller, take over the area, and what might end up happening is the deer won't be able to hide there anymore. and will have to move, meaning we might not see deer in that area anymore. So, as you can see, invasive plants cause a lot of problems when they start growing. We lose our native plants, and consequently, our native animals might have to move if they can no longer find food or shelter in the area. Awesome. So, well, for a little break, we're going to watch a short video. So you're going to follow along as two kids chase invasive plants that have escaped from their garden. And this is the first video in the part of 3 videos. I'll just show you the first one here.
Hello, thanks for joining me. Our story begins in a backyard garden in a town of Whitney.
Hi everyone, my name is Josh and this is my friend Sophie.
Hello, it's so nice to meet all of you. It's such a nice day. What are we going to do? Well, my dad just finished planting the garden. Let's have a look. That's a great idea. I love being in the garden. Come along, we'll show you it. Isn't the garden just so pretty?
My dad always plants the same flowers every year, so I know they are all called.
But what are these 2 flowers? The plant right there. Looks like it has yellow buttons as flowers. The leaves look like ferns. And look at this one. I've never seen a flower so blue. Have you guys seen these plants before?
Hey kids, you like the garden this year?
It's awesome.
But we were curious, what are these 2 plants?
Let's have a look. Oh no, I didn't plant those. They don't belong here. They are invasive.
What's an invasive plant?
Do you know what an invasive plant is?
An invasive plant is one that is introduced to a new environment by people or animals and causes damage because they outcompete our native or garden plants. The plant there with the yellow flowers is called common tansy. I call it terrible tansy. And the other plant is called mountain bluet. I call it bad bluet.
Wait, you didn't plant them. How did they end up in the garden?
The seeds may have hitched a ride on a bird, or maybe they came from the neighbor's yard.
Should we pull them out?
Yes, we should. You have to make sure you get all the seeds and roots and then put them in bags to dispose of them correctly. Let's do it tomorrow. It's dinner time right now.
Oh no, we've been caught, terrible tansy.
We picked the one garden where the people knew we were bad. Most people don't know we caused harm.
We have to bust out of here before they catch us.
It was then that Bad Bluet and Terrible Tansy realized they had to move. The garden is their most ideal home, but they could not stay in this one if the people knew they were invasive plants. They had to find a new place. In the night, they made their escape and began their search for a new place to invade. As the sun rose the next morning, Josh and Sophie got ready to clean up the garden.
Good morning. Ready to pull out the invaders?
I'm ready. And your dad said to wear gloves to protect our hands, so I got those too.
Perfect. We are all ready to save our garden from the invasive plant.
Come on, guys.
Where did they go? They were right here yesterday.
Do you know where they went?
Josh, look.
There were some seeds, and here's some baby plants.
You're right, Sophie, and they left a trail of clues. We have to go find them before they find a new place to live. But first, let's pick up all these seeds and pull all the baby plants so we can dispose of them properly and new terrible tansies and bad bluets won't go here again.
We got all the seeds and baby plants. Now we have to go find bad bluets and terrible tansy.
Join us on our adventure to find terrible tansy and bad bluet before they invade native ecosystems and gardens.
Tune in to the next episode to follow Sophie and Josh on their adventure to capture the invaders on the loose.
Awesome. I hope everyone enjoyed that. So like I said, that was the first video of that series. So if you want to watch the next 2, I'll have the link to those videos in the comment section for you. So the important things to get away from that video are that when Bad Bluet and Terrible Tansy left behind the seeds and baby plants, Josh and Sophie disposed of them in a garbage bag. So otherwise, if we were to leave those baby plants or seeds new invasive plants could easily start growing back and they might start taking over the garden. So it's really important to dispose of all invasive plants in the garbage. Awesome. So now that everybody knows what an invasive plant is and why they are a problem, I want to talk about kind of what is being done to deal with invasive plants and what you guys can actually do to help out. So I bet a lot of us have tried this first tool for dealing with invasive plants, and that's weeding. Now, weeding isn't super easy, but if we don't have many invasive plants in an area, it's a really great option. So for example, those goat's beards with the white puffs on them, they actually show up on my driveway every once in a while. And whenever I see one come up, I just simply pull it out and I put it in the garbage. And that's a great way to deal with a small amount of invasive plants. But the problem is when we have large fields of invasive plants or really big areas of them, it's not really practical to just pull them all out. That would take a long time. So there are a couple options for controlling really large amounts of invasive plants. So the first method I'm going to talk about is actually pretty cool, and it's called biological control. And if you like bugs, you might think this one's pretty cool too. So biological control is when we use living things to kill invasive plants. So in particular, we use insects. In this example I'm going to show you likes to eat the roots of this invasive plant called knapweed. So this invasive plant is called knapweed, and it's a very bad invasive plant that grows all around our area. And these little bugs here, they kind of look like beetles, but they're actually called weevils, and they're released on this knapweed plant, and they release their eggs on the roots of them. And when the eggs hatch, they turn into these small larvae, which are these white little bugs here in the roots. And as they grow, they start to eat the roots. And as you can imagine, if your roots are deteriorating and being eaten, then the knapweed plant won't get its nutrients, so it'll die. So this is pretty cool. So another thing is that the weevils actually only eat knapweed. So if you were to release the bugs on a big field of knapweed and maybe you had vegetables in there or other plants that you liked, they wouldn't even touch those plants. They'd only deal with the knapweed plant. So now some invasive plants unfortunately don't have bugs that like to eat them. So we need to use another tool to get rid of them. And what we generally use is a chemical spray. And usually this is safe, but we don't want to add chemicals to our environment unless we have to. So it's generally a last resort for us. Awesome. So now that we've talked about a few different options for controlling invasive plants, so there's weeding, biological control, and chemical control. But the best thing we can actually do to deal with invasive plants is to prevent their introduction in the first place. And to do this, you can actually help out. So all these things that I'm going to mention are great things that you guys can do to help. So my first tip is to make sure that you're staying on the trails when you're out walking. And I say this because if you were to go off the trails, you're actually disturbing all of the native plants in that area. And imagine if you're a native plant that's trying to compete with invasive plants and someone keeps stepping on you, you're probably going to weaken and you won't be able to compete with the invasive plants. So you might die or you won't be able to grow in that area. So my next tip is actually a fun one to try, and you'll actually be amazed if you do try it. So after you're done walking in the grass or the forest, stop and check your pants and your shoes. And I bet you'll be giving some free rides to seeds. So I bet most of you maybe check for ticks after you've gone for a walk. So this is a great thing to add to that list. So after you're done walking, check for ticks and then check for seeds. Now my last tip is also for when you're out walking, and that's to please make sure you try not to pick any plants or flowers in the wild. So it may seem like a really great idea to bring home a bouquet of flowers, but you might actually be picking invasive plants. Like all these ones on the screen here are all invasive plants you could find out in the wild. They're very pretty, but they do cause a lot of harm. And if you were to bring them into your house, you might end up having invasives growing in your yard, which wouldn't be that great. Awesome. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. If anybody has any questions or anything, you can either leave them in the comments or Julianne might tell you what to do with them. So I hope everyone learned something and maybe had a little bit of fun. So I'll hand it back over to Julianne for you.
Thanks, Lauren. That was really informative. I definitely didn't know all that about invasive plants. Now we all know what to do when we go hiking and pick seeds off our socks and pants. There's lots more information and informational videos on the Invasive Plant Management Committee YouTube page. We'll post a link to that as well in the comments. If you have any questions, I'll leave them in the comments. We will forward those to Lauren and her team and provide you with some really interesting answers, I'm sure. Thanks for watching our cool kids talk about invasive plants. See you guys next time. Bye now.
Bye.